There was once a man named Ethan Rivers, a name that echoed in the corporate world, printed on magazines, screens, and in the minds of ambitious dreamers who wanted to be like him. Ethan had built an empire from the ground up. From a struggling middle-class boy in a small town, he had become one of the youngest millionaires in the country. He owned companies, cars, and a mansion so large that it took minutes to walk from one wing to another. But somewhere in the glimmer of success, Ethan had lost touch with something far more precious: his roots, his mother, and the silent warmth of love that used to guide him. His mother, Grace Rivers, had raised him alone after losing her husband in an accident when Ethan was only 10. She had worked multiple jobs, skipped meals, and wore the same coat for years so that her son could go to school, have books, and chase dreams she never had the chance to live. Ethan often said, "One day, Mom, I'll make you proud. You'll never have to worry again." And true to his words, he did. But success has a strange way of changing people, not always by greed, but by distance, a distance of mind and heart. When Ethan married Victoria, a woman known for her elegance and charm, the world applauded. She was everything a successful man could ask for: intelligent, poised, and breathtakingly beautiful. But no one saw the quiet arrogance beneath her smile, the way her eyes narrowed when she was displeased, or the coldness that seeped into her words when no one else was listening. Grace sensed it the moment she met her, that something wasn't right. A mother's instinct rarely lies. In the beginning, Ethan made sure his mother was cared for. He moved her into a comfortable house near the countryside and hired caretakers. He sent her money every month, expensive gifts, and flowers on her birthday. Yet, as the years passed, the calls became fewer. The visits were rare. The voice that once called him, "my boy," now trembled through weak breaths over the phone, asking softly, "Ethan, when will you come visit, dear?" And each time, Ethan would reply, "Soon, Mom. Just a few meetings to finish first." Grace never complained. She knew life had taken her son far. But what she didn't know was that her world would soon collapse in silence, not because of fate, but because of betrayal inside her own family. Months later, Grace's health began to fail. The doctors said it was age, loneliness, and perhaps a lack of proper care. Ethan trusted his wife and the caretakers she had arranged for his mother. Victoria always said, "Your mother is being looked after perfectly, darling. I make sure of it." And Ethan, busy with business trips and board meetings, believed her. But the truth was buried under lies. Victoria saw Grace as an inconvenience, a reminder of the humble beginnings she despised. She didn't want her friends to see Ethan's frail mother, sitting in an old rocking chair with calloused hands. "She's too rustic," she would whisper to her friends. "I can't have her around during our charity events." And so, slowly, she distanced Ethan from his mother, controlling visits, intercepting calls, even changing caretakers when Grace grew too fond of one. When Grace's letters stopped coming, Ethan assumed she was simply tired. But in reality, Victoria had instructed that no letters reach him unless she approved. She began feeding him selective updates: "Your mother is doing fine, darling. Don't worry." But Grace was not fine. She was growing thinner, weaker, her eyes hollow from waiting. Every morning she looked out the window, hoping to see her son's car on the dusty road. Every night, she whispered a prayer: "God, just let me see him once more." One winter morning, Grace collapsed. Her neighbor, Mrs. Hill, found her unconscious and called for help. When Ethan finally got the call, not from his wife, but from the hospital, his world stopped. He flew there immediately, trembling with guilt, fear, and confusion. He expected his wife to be by his side, comforting him, but Victoria stayed home, claiming she had an event to attend. "You go, Ethan," she said calmly. "I'll join later." When Ethan reached the hospital, the sight that greeted him broke him completely. His mother, the woman who had once carried him on her back, who had stood by him through storms, was a shadow of her former self. Her face was pale, her hands fragile like paper. She opened her eyes slowly and smiled faintly. "Ethan, you came," she whispered. "Of course, Mom. I'm here now," he said, choking back tears. Her fingers brushed his cheek. "You've grown into such a fine man. I missed you, my boy." Tears rolled down Ethan's face as guilt burned through him. He looked at the doctors and asked what had happened. The answer stunned him. Severe malnutrition, dehydration, and neglect. The doctor's words echoed like thunder. She hasn't been eating properly for months. It seems she wasn't being cared for at all. How can that be? Ethan muttered. She had caretakers. She had everything she needed. The doctor looked down. Sometimes, sir, care requires more than money. Ethan returned home that night with anger boiling inside him. He confronted Victoria. Why didn't you tell me Mom was this sick? Why didn't you visit her? Victoria didn't flinch. She poured herself a glass of wine and replied coolly, Ethan, I told you she was being taken care of. She refused to eat. What was I supposed to do? Refused to eat. The doctor said she was neglected. He shouted. Do you have any idea what that means? Oh, please, she sneered. That woman always had drama. She lived in that old house like a ghost and refused every modern comfort I tried to send. If she's sick, it's her own fault. I had a life to run. Your life. The words cut deep. Ethan stared at her, realizing the woman he had loved, the one he thought shared his values, was someone entirely different. You kept me from her, he whispered. You took her letters, her calls, didn't you? Victoria smirked slightly. You were too busy. I was only protecting your peace of mind. Do you think running your empire is easy with distractions like that? Distractions, Ethan roared. She's my mother. For the first time, he saw Victoria for what she truly was, not a partner, but a mask of vanity and control. The image of his mother's frail face haunted him. That night, he made a decision that would change his life forever. He returned to his mother's bedside and took her hand. Mom, I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice trembling. I should have been here. I let you down. Grace smiled weakly. Don't cry, my boy. You're here now, and that's enough for me. No, Mom, Ethan said, tears falling freely. It's not enough. You deserved better than what I gave. I built a world for everyone but you. He stayed with her, day and night. He fed her, talked to her, read her favorite books, and sat by her window while she dozed. Slowly, she began to regain strength. Her cheeks filled with color again, and her laughter, faint but warm, returned to the house. The doctors called it a miracle, but Ethan knew it was love, the kind that heals wounds no medicine can. One afternoon, as sunlight spilled across the hospital room, Grace held Ethan's hand and said softly, I knew you'd find your way back, son. You always do. Don't let the glitter of the world blind your heart again. He nodded. I won't, Mom. Never again. In the weeks that followed, Ethan made drastic changes. He cut ties with Victoria, who showed no remorse. When she realized her control over him was gone, she lashed out, filing for divorce and demanding wealth. Ethan didn't fight. Take what you want, he told her. Just leave my peace, my mother, and my soul untouched. He sold the mansion and bought a simple home in the countryside, near where his mother had always wanted to live. They spent mornings walking in the garden, evenings sharing tea, and nights talking about old memories. Ethan found joy again, not in numbers or luxury, but in presence, the quiet presence of the woman who had given him life. As time went on, Grace grew stronger. She would smile and say, you know, Ethan, I don't need much anymore. Just hearing your voice each morning fills my heart. And Ethan would reply, you'll never have to wait for my voice again, Mom. One night, sitting by the fireplace, Ethan looked at her and said, I used to think success meant power and applause. But I learned it means love, the kind that doesn't fade when the world turns its back. Grace smiled. That's what I prayed you'd understand one day. Years passed, and when Grace finally left the world peacefully in her sleep, she did so in her son's arms, loved, cherished, and respected. Ethan wept, but this time not from guilt, from gratitude. He buried her beside the old willow tree near their home, the same place she used to sit and hum lullabies. On her tombstone, he engraved just one line. She taught me how to love before I learned how to live. Ethan never remarried. Instead, he started a foundation in his mother's name, the Grace Home, a place for elderly mothers abandoned by their children. Every wall of that home carried warmth, every bed a story of sacrifice, and every meal served with love. And above the entrance gate, in golden letters, were the words his mother had once whispered. Sometimes all the heart needs is to be remembered. People often asked Ethan why he dedicated his life to such a cause when he could have rebuilt his empire. His answer was simple: because money can build a house, but only love can build a home. And whenever he visited the Grace home, he felt her presence in the laughter of the women there, as if Grace herself had never left, still guiding him from above. He would sit by the same window, sunlight spilling across his face, and whisper, "I did it, Mom. I kept my promise." The story of Ethan Rivers became a quiet legend, not of wealth, but of redemption. It reminded people that success without compassion is hollow, that neglect can kill not only bodies but souls, and that sometimes the greatest revelation comes not from fortune, but from the pain of realizing who we've become. Ethan's journey taught the world that no matter how high you rise, you're never too far from falling, unless love anchors you. It taught that mothers don't need mansions or luxury, they need presence, warmth, and the sound of their children's laughter echoing through their hearts. It showed that forgiveness can heal wounds deeper than betrayal, and that true strength lies not in pride but in humility. And as Ethan sat one last evening beneath the willow tree, the wind whispering through the leaves, he smiled and said softly, "I had everything once, until I almost lost the only thing that ever mattered." That night, as the stars shimmered above, it seemed as though one star shone brighter than the rest, perhaps the one his mother now watched him from, proud and peaceful, knowing her son had finally learned what love truly meant.